Hello everybody and welcome to tonight's NXT review. NXT just ended, so we're going to jump in and break down everything that happened because this was an absolutely insane show with Vengeance Day just this Saturday. There's a lot of stuff we need to break down and also give our predictions on before Vengeance Day. So without further ado, let's hop right into it. Make sure to like, subscribe, and comment and leave your thoughts down below because we're doing these every day. Y'all know this. We did Monday Night Raw yesterday, or it came out today, but we did two videos back to back, and then we've got Dynamite and Evolve tomorrow, which we will be doing a review for Evolve since it is Succession, which is Evolve's PLE, which it's going to be such a good show, so we're going to review everything. But starting off with NXT tonight, Miles Bourne would open the show after defeating Ethan Page last week to win a championship in the WWE, and he would come out and it would be revealed that he's going to bring back the old North American Championship, which nobody really knew if he would or wouldn't, just because of, obviously, Miles Bourne isn't Canadian, so why would he keep the Canadian Championship? And I kind of like the old one. Now, comparing it next to the Canadian Championship, I do think that the Canadian Championship looks better, but with who's holding it, I do like the original better. Miles would come out and thank his fans and his family, and also his biggest hater, Ethan Page. And I really like the twist there. There's not a lot of champions that come out and thank the person they beated, but either way, it was really fun to see. I really liked the opening segment. We would see Ethan Page eventually come out and say that he had one bad night last week, which is the night that he lost the championship to Miles Bourne, and said that he had 1,000 great nights. So Ethan kind of flexed how much he actually did, and by the way, last week was just such a big moment, and a big moment because Ethan Page, if he would have beaten Miles Bourne, he would have been the longest reigning North American champion ever. I actually believe that he already is. Let me check that. I believe he still is. I'm pretty sure. Yeah, Ethan and Oba. So, the longest, oh my goodness, that is insane. The longest single reign by Ethan Page and Oba Femi, it was tied exactly at 273 days as champion. That is insane. So Wesley coming in at 269 days. Wow, that is insane. So Oba and Ethan tied, and if Ethan would have beat Miles Bourne last week, that would have put him above, which would have been the record for the longest reigning North American champion. That just shows how high the stakes were and shows how good Ethan Page is, but also he lost the night where it needed to be, where he needed to win the most. So that's definitely a tough break. We would see eventually Miles Bourne challenge Ethan Page to a rematch because Ethan Page was complaining that he got screwed, blah, blah, blah. So Miles Bourne gave him a rematch, which Robert Stone, the NXT GM, would accept, and they would get it on in their suits. They would have a match in their suits, and after Ethan Page tried to use his belt buckle, and Miles Bourne would eventually use some cheating tactics and use Ethan Page's boot to win, including the Born Again, which is Miles Bourne's finisher. I did not know how much I liked the finish. Obviously we kind of saw heel tactics from Miles Bourne, which is something I'm really intrigued to see where we go. Obviously it isn't heel tactics, but it is cool how Miles Bourne kind of matched the style of Ethan Page. Ethan Page obviously wanting to cheat to win the match and get his title back, but Miles Bourne just completely not allowing that and getting the boot and winning with the Born Again. So this is not good what WWE is doing right now with Ethan Page, because Ethan Page obviously was a former double champ. He lost to Lola Vice and Mr. Iguana to lose the AAA Mixed Tag Team Championships, and then last week he lost to Miles Bourne, which made him a no champion. So now Ethan Page is not holding a championship, and now we're seeing Miles Bourne beat him for the second time, back-to-back weeks, which definitely does not make him look good at all. And I think WWE was looking for us to think with Miles Bourne using the boot that would have been something that would have made us think, hey, Ethan Page is still strong, but just because he lost the boot, he lost. I think that even though Miles Bourne used the boot to win this match, that isn't enough for me to think that WWE is screwing over Ethan Page. I do think that's very hard to that's a hard pill to swallow there, just because we were looking forward to seeing Ethan versus Miles tonight. And whenever Ethan said, have a rematch tonight, I was expecting it to be in the main event because we had the Ricky Saints concert in the main event instead. So the fact that we did it in their suits, I just think this match shouldn't have happened. It eventually led to a Ricky Saints and Ethan Page segment backstage, and it's just a match that shouldn't have happened. It's just a part of the show that shouldn't have happened, and it's something that WWE and NXT should not have allowed to put their biggest NXT superstar now that Oba, Javon, and Trick has moved up. Why would they let their biggest NXT men's superstar go to waste by losing 2 times to Miles Bourne, which is somebody who was off TV for about 3 months straight? So WWE is definitely going to have to go down in the layer, figure out what Ethan Page is going to do now. I mean, if we're talking about what he could potentially do, there's no shot he becomes a face just because of how good he is as a heel. And if WWE does that, they're just going down the wrong path. And I feel like it would be confusing for the fans to kind of tap back into that face character of Ethan Page. And I think Ethan's just so much better as a heel. We all know it. And he was a double champ as a heel, so why wouldn't you want to continue that? But how will Ethan Page bounce back to potentially beat Miles Bourne, but also go and reclaim those championships with Chelsea Green? Obviously, Chelsea Green was not the one that lost the championships with Ethan Page because she was injured, but, you know, it's still hard to see. I think that Chelsea and Ethan will regain those championships once Chelsea is not injured anymore and is cleared to wrestle, but it's still super hard to see what WWE just did to Ethan Page these past 2 weeks. It's just really, really tough to watch. We would then see a Blake Monroe promo. We have Jada Parker versus Blake Monroe at Vengeance Day, and it's going to be absolutely insane, especially after hearing what we got and what the stipulation is. Blake would come out and say that she realizes that Jada Parker needs her, and that's why she's trying to have a rivalry with Blake, was because she needs her for clout. She needs her for ego. She's trying to get relevant, is what Blake was basically saying. So that's already like, what do you mean? You know what I mean? But then Blake would go even further and say that Jada can't step up. Say that Jada has been right here to the top of the division, has been right there, almost to the championship, about to get a championship match, and then just failed or gets injured. So, I mean, she's not wrong, though. Let's be honest. Now, it's obviously not Jada's fault. Jada is incredible in the mic and in the ring. But, you know, she's definitely a talent that has been wasted this far in her career. She hasn't won any championships that is going to mean something, that meant something at all. And so, you know, it's just it's so crazy to see in real time a talent being wasted. And what WWE is doing with Blake Monroe and Jada Parker, I think, is cool, but also it's only cool if Jada Parker wins, you know, because she did return, she got injured, the match had to be postponed, and now the match is here, we have to get it on. Jada Parker has to win, and that's the only excuse for what WWE can do. Jada has to win. If she don't, I'm going to be very upset, but we would eventually see Jada Parker come out and give her thoughts. And Jada would say that the glamour only exists because insecurity does. So now, Jada's trying to say that Blake Monroe is insecure. And that was insane. Jada would go also a step further and say that Blake Monroe is mediocre. So, you know, kind of a bad bar by Jada there. Because Jada was the one that got the shot against Sol RUCA and failed against Sol RUCA. And also, Blake Monroe is the one who beat Zarya for the championship and actually was the Women's North American champion. So I feel like that line could have definitely been off the script. I think that definitely was not a line we should have said there. But then after those words were said, Blake Monroe would strike first, and Jada Parker would stand still or stand tall and be the one that's ahead going in to Vengeance Day. I don't like that personally, just because, you know, normally the one who stands tall is the one who loses, and that would just mean Blake's just completely in the hole. But then later in the show, Blake Monroe would come out, and she would look absolutely insane, and she would announce that the match against Jada Parker on Saturday at Vengeance Day will be a street fight. The stipulation has been changed into a street fight. So that definitely changes the playing field. I think honestly Jada has the advantage here. Blake's never been in Blake's never been in a street fight, so it's gonna be hard to. Well, I guess Blake's kind of prepared actually. She was in that match with Jordynne Grace in that steel cage, and that has definitely prepared her. And honestly, just looking at her matches ever since her rivalry with Jordynne Grace, it seems like her style has kind of changed. I'm not gonna lie. Whenever I noticed this the other day, whenever I was watching some of her matches, it looks like her style has changed ever since that rivalry with Jordynne Grace. So I'm excited to see how the match with Jada goes in a street fight, having Blake revisit the insane stipulation, going from the steel cage where you have these weapons surrounding you to a street fight, see how that goes. But that could definitely be a reason that Blake wins. So I'm excited to see where that goes. Jada would come out as well after Blake came out the second time, and they would end up trying to brawl until they obviously broke it up. And then, after the Blake Monroe promo, we would see Nikita Lyons versus Ren Sinclair in the Speed Tournament, and the winner of this match would go on to face Thea Hill in the finals of the Speed Tournament, and whoever wins that will go on to face Fallon Henley for the Women's Speed Championship. Now, we've said this many times over the past few weeks, over the past few Speed Tournament matches. We all know it. The Speed Tournament has become a complete joke in the women's division. Now, the men's division, they're killing it. I'm not going to lie, the matches are actually good in the men's division. And honestly, I was kind of impressed with Nikita Lyons versus Ren Sinclair tonight as well. We would see, eventually, Ren Sinclair would win with 4 seconds left on the clock using the final wrench, which I think is a sick submission for a finisher. But Ren Sinclair would pick up the victory. Obviously, it's not what you want to see if you're Nikita Lyons, but also, it's the smart option. Nikita's on Evolve. Nikita's doing her thing over on Evolve, so you want to keep that to itself, and you don't want to have her interfere with anything on NXT, so it was good to have Ren just move up, and I'm actually excited to see who will win between Thea and Ren, and obviously, I do think it'll be Thea. I think Thea will go on to beat Fallon Henley, and I think that the reason for that is just because WWE has seen the potential in Thea Hill ever since she won the Women's North American Championship and seen the great match she had. So, I think WWE has seen the potential in Thea Hill, and they're going to finally pull the trigger on that whenever she beats Fallon Henley in the finals, or for the championship after the finals. So, I think that's just going to be absolutely nice to see. It's gonna be good to see Thea with a championship around her waist again, and I think it's gonna be a occurrence that's gonna happen very often. So it's gonna be cool to see. I think that's almost like completely certain, 100% that's gonna happen. But yeah, great match between Nikita and Ren. It was very impressive, I will say. We would see a little video being shown of Kalani Jordan training with Shayna Baszler for her underground match against Lola Vice. Now, Lola is 3-0 in the underground matches, and one of those wins being against Shayna Baszler. So, if you're Kalani Jordan, do you want to be training with somebody that got beat by the person you're facing? I don't know, but that's definitely going to be... But also, you got to think about it like this. Both Lola Vice and Kalani Jordan both have their own problems whenever it comes to this underground match on Saturday. Lola would also be told later in the show that if she gets her hand injured again during this match on Saturday, it'll either be 6 months out or she could lose complete function in her hand. So she could just lose that hand and all. That's insane. The storyline they're going with that, I think it's super cool. I'm really interested in that, honestly, and I just think that it's just so cool to see. So I honestly don't even know who I think is going to win this match. I think I will wait until I do my Vengeance Day predictions because I can't even think of anything or who's going to win right now. I just can't even think about it. I don't even know at this point. I would probably say Kalani Jordan, though, if I had to give like an instant right now prediction. But still, super cool right there. And also something we have to keep an eye on because it's on Saturday. They have a match on Saturday. Hank and Tank with Shiloh Hill would end up defeating the Vanity Project, which is a part of Ricky Smokes and Brad Baylor, the NXT Tag Team Champions. And I think that was... the match was okay. I definitely think that Shiloh Hill and Hank and Tank are good in the ring for sure, but I'm not going to lie. I'm just going to air it out. I think that this match was super mediocre. I think that the match was really mediocre. I did not think that the match was good, and that's just my personal opinion. I'm not going to lie. I don't think it was a great match. I definitely expected it to be a good match with Shiloh Hill and Jackson Drake involved, but I really wasn't impressed. Now, there were some cool spots in there, but I just wasn't really impressed with the match. But overall, Hank and Tank with Shiloh Hill would come out with the victory. After Tony D'Angelo would come out of his car and instantly go and attack Osiris Griffin, Dion Lennox would come to the back and see that Osiris is hurt and go and call out Tony D'Angelo, where Tony would come out and say that Dark State ruined his life in 2025. And Dion would say that at Vengeance Day, he will be fighting for not only himself, but for Dark State. So, the match between Tony D'Angelo and Dion Lennox is official. And I would love to point out the fact that Deion Lennox has been getting pushed ever since John Cena picked him in the Iron Survivor Challenge. I think that is so cool how WWE has realized. And honestly, I think John Cena opened the eyes of WWE here and was like, hey, seriously, this Deion Lennox kid is for real. So I think it's really cool how WWE has taken advantage of that, took an advantage of John Cena picking him and knowing that he's really good. So it's just little things we got to pick up on. I thought it was really cool here, though. I'm super excited to see how Tony versus Deion goes at Vengeance Day this Saturday. I think it's going to be really cool. Now, obviously, Tony D'Angelo should win, or he should get beat down, which would cause a DQ at Vengeance Day. But, I mean, I'm just, like, a lot of these matches are, the outcomes of these matches, I truly don't know. And y'all know normally we get these predictions right, but I truly don't know. We would then see Zarya face Jacy Jayne last week after Zarya pretty much saved Jacy Jayne from a title defense, a major title defense against Sol RUCA, by Zarya turning on her best friend Sol RUCA by spearing her, and then the bell ringing, Jacy hitting her with the rolling encore, and winning. So I think that this right here is a match that should have been bigger than it was. I think that the pressure was still really high, but to end the match, we would see Zarya hit the spear to Jacy Jayne. Jacy would get up and hit the rolling encore. Both would be laying on the ground. Sol RUCA would come out after Jacy and Zarya were both really paranoid of Sol RUCA coming out. Sol would come out, take out Fallon and Laney, and then hit the double Soul Snatcher to Zarya and Jacy. It was perfect. Picture perfect. Sol would leave a little message to Zarya and then would go hold up that Women's NXT Championship, showing that she is not done with that division and she is not done with Jacy nor Zarya. So, you know, that finisher is just so perfect for the situation that we're in right now. The finisher is perfect for the situation we're in, and I think it is so cool how Sol is, like, I don't even know how to describe it. It's just absolutely cinema what WWE is doing with this rivalry. The build-up took so long, and it was a build-up that you really had to be here for. And now we're here. Now we're here with the breakup. We're here with the breakup. We're about at the time where Sol's beating Jacy for that championship, or we're getting close to a triple threat at Stand and Deliver potentially for that NXT championship. And then we'll be able to see the rivalry between Zarya and Sol RUCA be in full force, but with the NXT Championship on the line, which should have been the same thing with Tatum Paxley and Izzy Dame, which WWE kind of fumbled the bag with, but they are still running through with that, with the match being at Vengeance Day between the two. So, Zarya and Sol RUCA is going to be a rivalry that feeds families. Now, obviously Zarya is going to be the heel in the situation, and I realized tonight, which we've obviously said it in the past before, but seeing Sol run up to hit that Soul Snatcher, there's just no shot Sol can ever be a heel. I'm just going to say it. There's no shot. She's way too good. Y'all know she is my favorite women's wrestler in the WWE. Let's make that known and very clear. But very, very good match to have the main event match, and then we would have a main event promo directly after. And I thought that it was not put together correctly, but now looking back at it, the things that went wrong were meant to go wrong. He would get up on the stage to sing his song, and he didn't have his pick out for his guitar, and he messed up the first song. Then he would sing a song that says that instead of I Believe in Joe Hendry, he said I Believe in Ricky, which Booker T would sing along to, which was absolutely hilarious. And then he would ask for a new chair and a new guitar, and as soon as he was getting handed his new guitar, Joe Hendry would hang on to it, take off the mask. It was actually Joe Hendry, and Joe would attack Ricky until eventually the Vanity Project would come and help out Ricky, but then Miles Bourne would come and fend off the Vanity Project and Ricky Saints to help Joe Hendry. So it was just a whirlwind of emotions at this main event. I thought it was good, but also I was just really annoyed by the fact that we were sitting there for multiple minutes on end, having Ricky mess up. I feel like it definitely could have went another way. I don't think I think that it's very annoying, the fact that every time Joe Hendry gets in a rivalry with somebody in WWE or in WWE period, there always has to be a concert involved. I get it, Joe Hendry does concerts, but that doesn't mean every single one of his opponents has to do a concert to try to battle him. Like, it just doesn't need to happen. But overall, talking about everything we talked about on NXT tonight, I thought it was a really solid episode, and I think that obviously the best part of the show, I think, was Zarya versus Jacy. That was a really fun moment in the night. That would be my moment of the night right there, Zarya versus Jacy Jayne. It was a big fight feel, and at some points of the match, you actually felt like Zarya might have won. Especially after Zarya hit that spear. So let me know down below what your favorite part of NXT was, and also rate it down below. If you want to see my rating of NXT, go to the description box where you can see my rating of NXT. But without further ado, I hope y'all enjoyed this review, and I will see y'all boys in the next one. Deuces.